Welcome back to 40 Days of Lent with the Screwtape letters. Today's chapter hits very close to home because it is about what happens inside any close relationship where two people are genuinely trying to love each other. Chapter 26 is about the corruption of charity, and Screwtape, as usual, finds the fault line with unerring precision. As always, let's begin with a prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our defense against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world for the ruin of souls. Amen. Now, chapter 26. Courtship is the time for sowing those seeds which will grow up 10 years later into domestic hatred. The enchantment of unsatisfied desire produces results which the humans can be made to mistake for the results of charity. Screwtape opens with something genuinely chilling. The seeds of marital breakdown are best sown not after the wedding, but before it. During courtship itself, when everything is enchanted and the couple is in the full warmth of falling in love. Screwtape knows this phase will end. Science, by the way, puts its maximum duration at around 2.5 years, and he wants to make sure that when it does, the couple has built their habits and expectations entirely on the enchantment, rather than on something deeper and more durable. His specific tool is the corruption of the word love itself. Screwtape notes with evident satisfaction that his department has done excellent work substituting the word unselfishness for the Christian word charity. This substitution, small as it seems, is devastating. Unselfishness is a negative concept, the mere absence of selfishness, the denial of your own wishes for the sake of others. Whereas charity, the Latin caritas, the Greek agape, is a positive, outward-flowing force that actively wills the good of the other, not the suppression of your desires, but the genuine seeking of what is truly good for someone else. And here is where the trouble begins. Screwtape describes what he calls the generous conflict illusion, and I want you to recognize this because it happens in almost every home. Picture a husband and wife deciding where to go for dinner. She suggests a restaurant she thinks he'd enjoy. He says he's happy with wherever she prefers. She insists it's up to him. He insists it's up to her. Neither will simply say what they actually want. The evening ends in a sulk, with someone feeling unappreciated and the other feeling falsely accused, and both of them performing unselfishness right up to the moment the bitterness spills over. Lewis makes the point with a line that is as funny as it is devastating. He quotes a sensible person who once observed, "If people knew how much ill-feeling unselfishness occasions, it would not be so often recommended from the pulpit." We laugh, but uncomfortably, because we recognize it. The problem is that underneath the performance of self-sacrifice, each person is quietly accumulating two things: a secret sense of moral superiority and a secret grudge that their sacrifice is being accepted too easily by the other. The unselfishness is real enough on the surface, but it is feeding something deeply selfish underneath. The need to be seen as the more generous one, the one who gives more, the one who deserves more in return. Now, this connects to something Saint Josemaría said about charity that cuts right to the heart of the chapter. He wrote, "If you want to be useful, serve. It's not enough to want to do good, we must know how to do it." Real charity is not just well-intentioned, it is competent and attentive to what the other person actually needs, not to what makes you feel virtuous for giving. A parent who smothers a child with attention the child doesn't need is not serving the child. They are serving their own need to feel needed. Real love requires both the will to serve and the honesty to ask, what does this person actually need from me right now? And this brings us back once again to the marathon analogy. In the early stages of any close relationship, there is the glucose phase, the warmth, the effortless generosity, the enchantment doing most of the emotional heavy lifting. It is easy to be kind when everything feels wonderful. It is easy to be patient when you are still enchanted. It is easy to give generously when giving costs you almost nothing, because the feelings make it feel like gain. But then comes the wall. The enchantment fades, the glucose runs out, and now love has to operate on something deeper and slower, on will, on habit, on genuine charity rather than the beautiful feelings that used to make charity easy. And this is precisely the moment Screwtape has been waiting for, because this is when a person's normal, everyday, unflattering self begins to show, when they're tired or distracted or simply less effusively warm than they were during the enchantment. And the other person misreads this not as ordinary human limitation, but as a deficiency of love. She used to do so much for me, or he used to be so attentive, now becomes they don't really love me, and I deserve better. What has actually happened is that the glucose ran out and the fat burning began. The love has not diminished, it has matured. But if both parties built their expectations entirely on the enchantment, the wall will feel like an ending rather than a beginning. Screwtape also uses this moment to introduce one of his most insidious confusions, the misreading of a person's character as a moral failing. Someone who is naturally quiet and reserved will, during the enchantment phase, seem thoughtful and deep. After the enchantment fades, the same quality gets reread as cold or distant. Someone naturally direct and decisive was strong and clear-headed in the early days and becomes domineering or insensitive later. Nothing has actually changed. The person is the same person you fell in love with. What has changed is the enchantment that used to soften everything and make every trait look like a gift. So, what is the antidote? It is, in a word, charity. Real charity, not the performative unselfishness Screwtape has substituted for it. Charity that is honest enough to say what it wants and ask what the other person needs. Charity that is humble enough to keep giving when giving is no longer easy. Charity that recognizes the wall for what it is, not the end of love, but the beginning of the deeper, freer love that the enchantment was only ever pointing towards. The commitment was real when you made it. It remains real now. Not because you feel it, but because you chose it. And your choice does not expire when your feelings change. I want to say that again because it matters enormously, especially if you are in a season where a commitment feels hollow because the warmth has gone quiet. The commitment was real when you made it. It remains real now. Not because you feel it, but because you chose it. And this is not cheerless. It is the foundation of all genuine love. Love that depends on enchantment is not love. It is enjoyment. And while enjoyment is a gift, it is not the same thing as love. Real love is what remains when the enchantment has quieted and what deepens in all the long years that follow. So, 2 Lenten resolutions. First, examine your charity toward the people closest to you. Is it attentive to what they actually need, or has it quietly become a performance of virtue that secretly expects recognition and keeps score? The antidote to the generous conflict illusion is not more elaborate self-sacrifice. It is simpler honesty, saying what you want, asking what the other person needs, and then genuinely trying to serve that, rather than your own image of yourself as a generous person. And second, identify one commitment you made during a warm, enthusiastic phase that you are now tempted to let quietly erode because keeping it now requires will rather than feeling. This Lent, choose it again, freely, deliberately, with your eyes open. Because the runner who crosses the wall finds something extraordinary on the other side, and so does a spouse and a friend, and the soul that has given itself completely to God. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode of 40 Days of Lent with the Screwtape Letters.